Township Ethics Board, and I'd like to welcome you to this meeting this evening. I'd first like to introduce the members of the Radnor Ethics Board who are up here with me. To my left is the Vice Chairman, Martin Heldring, and to his left is Lane Vines, member of the community, and to his left is Joel Barris, who is the counsel to the board. He's with the law firm of Reed Smith. To my right is Bill Conlon, and to his right is Joanna Bell Merriam, and Joanna is an alternate member of the Radnor Ethics Board. At this time, I hereby declare that a quorum of the board is present and that we may proceed with the conducting of business. The matter to be acted upon this evening is the complaint filed against 3rd Ward Commissioner William Spingler. On May 28, 2014, the Radnor Township Ethics Board received an ethics complaint filed by Christina Perroni against Commissioner Spingler. Ms. Perroni subsequently filed 5 supplemental submissions, which in part amended her initial allegations. In her complaint, Ms. Perroni alleged that Commissioner Spingler violated several provisions of the Radnor Township Home Rule Charter and the Radnor Township Ethics Code as follows. 1, Commissioner Spingler directly and/or indirectly received gifts, favors, services, commissions, and/or other consideration or employment from Villanova University or Event One that reasonably tended to influence Commissioner Spingler's discharge of his official duties. Commissioner Spingler, number 2, Commissioner Spingler engaged in a business transaction or had a financial or other interest, direct or indirect, which involved the proper discharge of his official duties or tended to impair his independence of judgment or action in the performance of his official duties. Number 3, Commissioner Spingler engaged in or accepted private employment or rendered services for private interests that conflicted, interfered with, or influenced his proper discharge of his official duties or tended to impair his independence of judgment or action in the performance of his official duties. Number 4, that Commissioner Spingler failed to disclose a direct or indirect financial interest with any entity seeking formal action of the board. The Ethics Board formally received this complaint as it satisfied the procedural requirements dictated by the Township Code and the board's rules and regulations. Receipt of this complaint initiated the board's preliminary inquiry. Before I discuss details of the board's preliminary inquiry, it is important to note the limitations imposed on the board and its members about what can and cannot be publicly disclosed. Section B2 of the board's rules and regulations expressly states that the board will keep information, I quote, the board will keep information and proceedings relating to a preliminary inquiry confidential, unquote. Given this requirement, the board faced a conflict between its desire to fully apprise Radnor Township's residents of our findings through the preliminary inquiry and the dictates that we keep such information confidential. To resolve that conflict, the board has decided to disclose only the extent of our comprehensive investigation as follows. First, in completing its preliminary inquiry, the board reviewed the complaint and supplemental submissions from Ms. Perroni and her attorney, including documents submitted by Ms. Perroni and her attorney, which they believed corroborated the allegations within the complaint. Next, the board interviewed Commissioner Spingler and reviewed over 120 pages of documents Commissioner Spingler provided to support his accounting of the relevant events. The board interviewed or reviewed written statements from multiple Radnor Township commissioners other than Commissioner Spingler. The board interviewed representatives from the Radnor Wayne Little League and reviewed financial documents provided by the Little League. The board submitted written questions to Villanova University and reviewed the university's substantive responses to those questions. In addition, the board reviewed relevant documents provided by the university. Members of the board interviewed multiple individuals who worked as paid ushers at Villanova University basketball games at the behest of Commissioner Spengler. The board reviewed a written submission provided by an individual who volunteered as an usher at the behest of Commissioner Spengler. The board attempted on multiple occasions to interview or seek documents from Event 1, but Event 1 declined to cooperate with the board's inquiry. The board invited Ms. Peroni to an interview under the same conditions as all others who were interviewed, but Ms. Peroni declined to attend any such interview. That was the extent of the preliminary inquiry that was undertaken by this board. It entailed hundreds of hours in total among this group. Next on the agenda is the public comment period before we go to the motions regarding the complaint. Before we move to public comment, I would like to inform everyone that we will follow the Board of Commissioners' practice of permitting members of the public to speak for approximately 5 minutes. I reserve the right to shut off the podium microphone if that time limit is exceeded, or to adjourn or recess the meeting if anyone refuses to cede the floor after their 5 minutes have expired. At this time, I invite public comment.
Good evening. Dan Sherry, counsel for Christina Peroni. First, in terms of public comment, this was made very clear, both to the board as well as to the press, that there was one reason and one reason alone why Ms. Peroni declined to speak with this board. And that was because this board, through counsel, refused to have Ms. Peroni's comments and statements to this board transcribed in a stenographic record. That was the reason for the declining. I have no idea why Event 1 declined to speak with you, gentlemen and ladies. But to the extent there is any insinuation that Ms. Peroni's declining to speak with you was anything other than that is inappropriate. That was the rationale. My client and I take this process extremely seriously. It is, in our opinion, inappropriate to appear before an investigative body, such as an ethics board, and provide statements which then are recorded merely by the recollections of the individuals present. The other parameter that was requested if Ms. Peroni was to speak with this board is that the meeting be videotaped. That was also declined by this board. So that and that alone is the rationale behind Ms. Peroni's a decision not to speak with this board. So any insinuation, again, that it is analogous to whatever reason Event 1 gave for not speaking with you, I take exception to. One other point that was not made. In Ms. Peroni's supplements, she demonstrated that pursuant to statements made by Bill Spengler in public, that there was actually a negative conflict of interest in terms of what Mr. Spengler was required to provide in terms of the numbers of ushers at Villanova basketball games. He specifically informed the press he was required to produce 13 ushers at games and was responsible for then paying out of his own pocket if he could not fulfill that quota. That became the subject of a specific supplement to Ms. Peroni's complaint, which demonstrated that not only did Mr. Spengler have a positive conflict of interest with respect to Villanova basketball games, getting paid money, but also a negative conflict. What happens if I can't show up with ushers? I have to pay people out of my own pocket. I don't think that was made clear during the remarks of the chairman, so I just bring that forward. Lastly, I'd like to talk about this meeting here tonight. We received notice of this meeting approximately a week ago. I asked repeatedly counsel for the ethics board whether I could see an agenda, because that wasn't immediately provided, or thereafter if I could get a sense as to what this meeting was about, what was going to be taking place, and didn't receive any response. The agenda that was posted online provides no support, or rather not no support, but no information that I could use to prepare for this meeting or prepare my client for this meeting as to what you all intended to do. I deduce from taking a look at these rules that were first circulated to my client by then counsel John Rice, that this board is required to take action within 90 days of a complaint being received by this board, which I think was April 24th or April 28th, 2014. We are within that 90-day period. I would, though, state just in a final comment that the only way this board, according to these rules, has the ability to close a preliminary inquiry and not move on to a hearing is whether the person complained of, number one, is not subject to the ethics code. That's clearly not Commissioner Spengler. Or number two, the occurrence giving rise to the complaint is not within the purview of the ethics code. And that is section B, which deals with preliminary inquiry, number 4. The board, through its chairman, will close the preliminary inquiry if the occurrence giving rise to the complaint is not within the purview of the ethics code or the respondent is not a person subject to the ethics code. So, to the extent this meeting tonight, which again, very little advance information was published on, is anything other than moving forward with the next step, which appears to be a full investigation and hearing, I would say that that appears to be at odds with what this board is capable of doing just with respect to these ethics board rules that John Rice described as not in any ordinance or resolution book. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other comments from the public? Seeing none, I'll ask.
Yes.
Oh, yes, please come forward.
Maybe this is not the time, you can tell me. I'm Elaine Scherer. I live at 231 South Ithan Avenue, Rosemont, for over 56 years. I met Bill in 1962 when he was still a student at Villanova. He was taking a political geography course and encouraged to start doing something about politics. And so the next election, there he was at the polls handing out ballots. Since that time, Bill has given his life to Villanova and to Radnor Township. I don't mean really Villanova, I mean to Radnor Township, to the people and everybody else. Yes, the basketball games, which I love too. But anyway, he has worked with the Radnor Little League. And if it weren't for Bill, his work on the trail, he spent 10 years getting the trail. At first, there was a lot of opposition. People thought their property rates were going to go down. What has happened? Just the opposite. We have the trail and the people are coming. That time, he was a commissioner in the 3rd Ward. And it was not a ward that was, what would you say, hospitable to a lot of Democrats. But he got to know the people. They liked him. They saw what he was fighting for. They saw that he liked open space. And he's still a commissioner this many years later. And he was hired by Event One. And he got volunteers to usher at basketball games. I happen to be a docent at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I volunteer. Do I get a couple of perks? Yes, I do. Does that make me beholden to the museum? No. And I think this is the way it is with Bill. He has given what money that came, it went to the Radnor Little League. So with that, I hope that you will give Bill every consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Yes.
Good evening. I'm Brian Curley. I live at 136 Fairfield Lane, Radnor Township. I'm the person who provided the letter that you referenced in your statements earlier regarding the volunteer situation. I am and have been an unpaid volunteer at Villanova basketball games for 16 years. I don't know why I was never paid other than, bottom line was, I do it because I have kind of the same passions that Bill has. For full disclosure, I'm a Villanova graduate. I love Villanova basketball, but I've been a volunteer in the Radnor youth sports programs for over 20 years. I'm currently a basketball official for the Radnor basketball program. I've been an umpire, I've been a coach, I've been a commissioner of a league. I understand the value and the need for volunteers. I'm a person that Bill calls in an attempt to get additional unpaid volunteers to come to the Villanova basketball games. I know the challenges of families with busy lives. I just want to make it clear to the board, as I tried to in my letter, that I truly believe what we do at the Villanova basketball games is volunteer work. I work for a fairly large U.S. corporation that I report those hours as volunteer hours. I'm permitted time off from work to leave early to attend the games because of the ultimate value, which is the youth of Radnor Township and the sports programs. And that's what it's all about. I know there's a lot of political things bouncing around. I care not to address those. I just, wanted to be clear to this board and to the people here that this process of volunteering is to benefit the youth of Radnor Township. Nothing more, nothing less. Thanks for your time.
Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll go to the next item on the agenda, which is the motions. One of the things I forgot in the introductions was to mention that Commissioner Higgins has been a member of the Radnor Ethics Board and has participated fully in all of our activities, and that the reason he is not here tonight is because of a family emergency that came up today, and he is taking care of that and could not be with us this evening. Otherwise, he would have been here. At this time, I'll ask the members of the board if there are any related motions to entertain.
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion, and I'll read it so that hopefully it's clear. But I'd just like to say in advance of the motion that I echo the chairperson's comments in the beginning of the meeting. I think this is all a result of a very fair and exhaustive investigation, and I'm proud of the work that we've all done. So with respect specifically to the charge that Commissioner Spingler violated Section 9.05A, parentheses 2 of the Radnor Home Rule Charter and Section 39-5B3 of the Radnor Township Code, I move that the preliminary inquiry be closed as there exists no probable cause that Commissioner Spingler solicited or accepted directly or indirectly any gift or promise of future benefit, favor, service, commission, thing of value, or other consideration from any person, firm, or corporation which is interested in any manner whatsoever in business dealings with the township, or that might reasonably tend to influence the proper discharge of the duties of his office.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have the motion before the board in a second. Are there any comments from any of the board members? Seeing none, we will go forward with the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion, please say no. The ayes have it, and the motion is carried unanimously. Joanna, while you served as an alternate and do not get a formal vote, do you wish to note whether you agree to the board's vote on this motion?
I agree.
Thank you. Are there any other related motions?
Yes, with respect to the charge that Commissioner Spingler violated Section 9.05B of the Radnor Home Rule Charter, I move that the preliminary inquiry be closed as there exists no probable cause that Commissioner Spingler had a direct or indirect financial interest with any person or business entity proposing to contract with the township for the purchase or sale of land, material, supplies, or services of any kind, or seeking formal action of the board or any petition application, request, or appeal, whether that interest is as an employee, a party, a partner, or a stockholder.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Thank you. We now have a motion before the board and a second. Are there any comments from any of the board members?
Seeing none, we'll go forward with the vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion, please say no. The ayes have carried unanimously and the motion has passed. Joanna, while you have served as an alternate and do not get a formal vote, do you wish to note whether you agree to the board's vote on this motion?
I agree.
Thank you. Are there any other related motions?
Yes, with respect to charge that Commissioner Spengler violated Section 39-5A of the Radnor Township Code, I move that the preliminary inquiry be closed, as there exists no probable cause that Commissioner Spengler engaged in any business transaction or had a financial or other interest, direct or indirect, which in any way involved the proper discharge of his official duties in the public interest or would tend to impair his independence of judgment or action in the performance of his official duties.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion before the board and a second. Are there any comments from any of the board members? Having none, I will now go for a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion, please say no. The ayes have carried it and the motion has passed. Joanna, while you serve as an alternate and do not get a formal vote, do you wish to note whether you agree to the board's vote on this motion?
I agree.
Thank you. Are there any other related motions?
Yes, one last motion. With respect to the charge that Commissioner Spengler violated Section 39-5B1 of the Radnor Township Code, I move that the preliminary inquiry be closed, as there exists no probable cause that Commissioner Spengler engaged in or accepted private employment or rendered services for private interest when such employment or services conflicted or interfered with or influenced him in the proper discharge of his official duties or tended to impair his independence of judgment or action in the performance of his official duties.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion before the board and a second. Are there any comments from the board members? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 All those opposed to the motion, please say no. The ayes have carried unanimously and the motion has passed. Joanna, while you have served as an alternate and do not get a formal vote, do you wish to note whether you agree to the board's vote on this motion?
I agree.
Thank you. Are there any other related motions? Seeing that there are no other related motions, I now move that we have the board's counsel draft a letter for our signatures to the complainant and to Commissioner Spengler, and that council copy the Radnor Township Board of Commissioners to notify them of the board's closing of the preliminary inquiry. I further move that the board's counsel cause the letter to be delivered after it has been signed by the board members. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
We have a motion before the board and a second. Are there any comments from board members? Hearing none, we will now vote on the motion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed to the motion, please say no. The ayes have carried unanimously and the motion has passed. Joanna, while you have served as an alternate and do not get a formal vote, do you wish to note whether you agree to the board's vote on this motion?
I agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, the next item of business on the agenda is an adjournment. So before I do, I would just like to thank the members of the board who have worked very hard with us to try to provide a very fair and complete hearing on this complaint. I'd also like to thank the Township Manager, Bob Zinkowski, and his assistant, Jennifer, for their support of our work. And I'd also like to thank Joel Barris, who has served as our counsel from Reed Smith and has been very helpful to the process. Therefore, I'd like to now entertain a motion for the meeting to be adjourned.
I so move.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Great. The ayes have it and the motion is carried. I declare this meeting is now adjourned. And thank you for being here.